TCT presents Public Report, a look at the issues and events of importance to our viewing area. Now, here's your host.
Hello, welcome to Public Report. I am your host, Richard McCorkell, and we are very excited for you to be here. I am joined with my co-host and beautiful wife, Crystal. How are you doing today?
I am doing great and excited.
Good. We're very excited. We have our first guest is Angela Yvette, and her ministry is the Powerhouse of Faith Ministry. Very, very powerful in the region of Raleigh, as well as she just got done writing her book called Invisible Scars. And we're just going to dive right into it. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Very good. Now, you just released Invisible Scars, am I correct?
Yes, I did.
Give me a little breakdown of what that's about.
Well, the book itself stemmed from actually some of the emotional wounds that I experienced in my childhood and being a teenager and young woman. And ultimately, I wrote this letter to my younger self. And from writing that letter to my younger self, I was inspired from others who read the letter to begin to write this book. And this is the first in my Breaking Free series. And so it's actually lessons and strategies that I've learned from my grandmother and mother and women of inspiration in my life that helped me to overcome those emotional wounds that ultimately caused some physical and some relational as well as spiritual trauma.
Right, so this is going to be the first in a series of books.
Yes.
Wow, and this is based, you said, based on the wisdom of your mom and your grandmother and stuff. So when you, what was the inspiration to write a letter to your younger self?
Well, I was at an event. I had spoke at this particular event one week, and then the next week I was invited to come back. And because I knew the lady that was going to be the speaker that night, and the assignment was for us to write a letter to our younger self. And I did not know at the time that that was going to transition into the book, because I knew that I was to write a book, and I had known that for years, but I didn't know how it was going to come about. Yes. And so when I wrote the letter, you didn't have to share, but they asked us to share if you wanted to. And so I shared the letter, and as I was reading it, I was seeing the response in the room, because it was women in the room. Yes. And I began to just think about how I had mentored over the years different clientele, and these women were saying the same thing. They're like, your story needs to be out there. You need to tell more. We want to know more about this. Yes. And I went home and began to pray, and ultimately it turned into this series.
Wow, wow.
Well, what happened to your younger self? So share with the audience some things starting from your childhood, and then how this has developed into your nonprofit.
Okay. Well, when I was born, I was actually born with a cataract on my left eye. Okay. And I had to have several surgeries. And as a child, having those surgeries as an infant and a toddler, and then the after effect of that is just some things that my eye would ultimately do. And children would pick. Wow. And they would not just pick verbally with words that hurt, but ultimately even pick physical fights with me. Wow. And just growing up, first of all, starting off in the city, because we lived in Maryland. We was born in D.C., my sister and I, and then we moved to Maryland, and ultimately my parents came back home to North Carolina. Yes. But even in that, just going through that verbal abuse as a child from other children, to going into junior high, same thing, high school, the same thing. And ultimately being an adult and people still looking at me funny and stuff, and just going through that type of emotional thing, but then also just being called all types of things, you know, out of my name and out of my character. You begin to believe some of these things if you called it long enough. Yes. And so it caused a lot of emotional trauma, and because I hid that pain, I masked it. Yes. You know, I masked it with the smile, I masked it just acting like everything was okay. Yes. And not expressing to family or anybody what was really ultimately happening on the inside. It caused a lot of pain for me. And then ultimately going through just high school was the first step of helping me understand one thing. When a biology teacher actually heard a bullying me and picking at me, and she said to him, "You're picking at her for something she can't even control. She was born that way, she couldn't even control it." And that began to change my perspective of it a little bit.
Yes. So when you wrote this letter, how did you even start? Like, what was the first thing that kind of came to your mind?
Well, when I first started writing the letter, I titled it Dear Uniquely Made. And the reason why, because that's the first lesson I learned. I learned that I'm uniquely made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And so I titled it that, and then I just went into just talking about some of the things that I was experiencing, but then I ultimately ended the letter dealing with the powers that helped me. You know, the power of love, the power of forgiveness, the power of even know, the power of, you know, of communication, how you should communicate different things. And so in my second book, I will really explain and go through that. This first book is really the journey that I went on to begin to discover the power to heal.
And what has your response been when you're talking to other people who have read it, and what's the response so far?
Well, so far, people are like just saying that this can be a workshop. Like, they was asking me, they was like, you know, one lady even asked me about the book, how long would it take me to teach on this, you know, because she went through it and she saw within this book, I have exercises that you can do, places for you to journal, questions for you to answer that helps you to uncover those wounds, uncover those things that's been holding you back and keeping you stuck, and then begin to discover that potential and possibility that's within you so you can recover into living life by design.
Right.
And so as you're going through the book, there's exercises, walk it out exercises, and then, like I said, there's the place to journal and write out your personal prayers, as well as prayers that I have in the book to start you off. But as you go along, you have a place where you can begin to write your own. And so people have just been very responsive to it and saying how it's beginning to help them.
That's great. And
just understanding some things about themselves. And then as one lady even said, healing from the beginning to the end. That's how she explained it.
Wow, that's great. And were you raised in a family, in a culture of faith? You raised?
Yes, actually I was. In the beginning of growing up, I wasn't church, but coming to North Carolina and being around grandma, you know, living across the street from her, like I tell people, I was drugged to church. But even though I know it's supposed to be dragged, but you know, I have to exaggerate. But it was good to be in that environment of church, even though I didn't fully understand all of it. But as I got older and realized what grandmother was saying, what mama was saying, what the pastor and Sunday school teachers were saying, ultimately helped me to begin to walk this life out, because I really didn't get saved myself until my college years.
I see, okay.
Yes, in my college years is when I got saved.
I see. Wow. And when you, I'm sorry, but when you got saved, finally, did you realize that, okay, there were some, when did you realize, okay, I got to deal with some things that probably, like you said, masked. When did you kind of come to that reckoning that you had to do that? Actually,
that was in my 20s is when I really began that, because ultimately in my college years, I began to see some things about myself and discover some things about myself. And being in a Baptist Student Union meeting on campus and hearing about Christ and understanding that I needed to make a change, I asked the teacher to tell me more. And he did, and he led me to Christ. And then I began the process of just learning more and finding a church in the area in which I was living at the time, because I was in college. And then upon just experiencing a whole lot of other different things, becoming a single mom, I became pregnant my last semester in college. And a lot of that happened around, you know, that hurt and just going through different things and being in, you know, unhealthy relationships, if you will. But then knowing that I was going to be this single mom by myself, because ultimately the father and myself had already broken up by the time I found I was pregnant. And so that in itself caused me to say, okay, I really need to step it up. I'm a mother. I have to begin to look at, think life a little differently. And God took me through a whole process to learn how to forgive, forget forward. And how to understand what forgiveness really is and why you must forgive and the importance of it. And if you don't, you're ultimately holding yourself in bondage to the person that you're not forgiving. Because every time they come around, you feel some kind of way. That anger, that rage, that bitterness draws up in you. And so I learned how to forgive, forget forward.
Wow.
That is really good. Now, in college, did you have any like problems in college? Did anyone say things to you like in high school and in grade school?
In college, I had more of the, I guess you could say, the jealousy of certain things, because honestly, I didn't think that I was beautiful, but other people saw the beauty in me.
Yes.
And they would mistreat me because of that, but I didn't see it. And I didn't look at myself as being beautiful. I didn't look at myself as having, a good amount of self-esteem or self-confidence at that time.
Sure.
But I did have some people that I friended in college that began to show me, true friendship and true love, and real friendship as far as friends go. But as far as the picking because of the appearance, that didn't happen. But the people, trying to figure out what I'm looking at, because still I had little issues and stuff with my eyes. But ultimately, that kind of stuff stopped a little bit in college.
Wow. Now, had you had any operations or anything, doctors or anything like that with it? Because you're looking pretty good to me.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Well, like I said, when I was an infant and a toddler, I had operations, but I had my last surgery in 2009.
Okay.
And that was the eye opener for me.
Okay.
That truly was an eye opener, because I truly thought, you think you're Superwoman.
Yes.
I'm going to go in, I'm going to be
Yes.
able to have this surgery, and I'm going to bounce back, and I can go back to schooling my children and doing everything. And ultimately, I was down for a complete 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And God began to show me that from the trauma I experienced, that pain that I experienced from those surgeries as an infant and a toddler, and now I'm experiencing it as an adult and seeing, and I was like, if I went through this as a little child, and the type of pain that I experienced due to the surgeries, and then because ultimately as a child, this is the area that people would literally hit me in.
Wow.
And
so when fighting or something?
yes, when fighting,
wow.
when it would hit me.
Wow.
And so when I realized that that's where the anger came from. That's where the rage and the bitterness was coming from, a pain, a physical pain that I experienced that ultimately caused the emotional wounds because of being picked at.
Yes.
All of that started happening, the eye opener upon me having a surgery as an adult.
Right.
Wow. So when they hit you, did it cause any more damage or anything?
Actually, it didn't cause damage, but it brought a lot of strength from somewhere, because I was a tiny person back then. I was really small, and for whatever reason, it was boys a lot of times that would fight me. And so it was just this strength that would come, and my sister, was like, I can't jump into the middle of that. She, she doesn't understand what she's doing, because I would just black out and target in on my target.
Right.
And so it was some strength that just came, and I don't know, I guess it's because of that pain that I probably was experiencing. And I don't believe it caused any more damage, but I just believe that because I was hitting that sensitive area, it ultimately caused me to want to fight back, and whereas I really wouldn't. If you hit me anywhere else, I wouldn't fight you.
No kidding.
Until you hit that spot, then you just
That's
really
the spot.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, Powerhouse of Faith Ministry. Give me a little background on that.
Well, Powerhouse of Faith Ministry, God gave me the vision actually in 2006, and God was beginning to speak to me, and I took out a steno pad and just started writing what he was saying, and he was talking to me about Bible studies and being out in apartment complexes and doing different things, stuff that I never even heard of as far as ministry, and I was just not quite understanding. So when 2011 came and we were birthed in the ministry, I was thinking it was going to be like your traditional church or whatever, so we started in my home, and over some time we was in my home, and then we did go into a building for a season, long enough for the Lord to show us this is not what you're supposed to be doing.
I like that.
And
that's really good, because a lot of people think they're supposed to have a building, they set up shop, and just God wants us to be out,
And so ultimately, when he brought us back into the home, a door opened for me to be in an apartment complex and really see, because upon me hearing about what was happening, it's like they say, your baby leaped, something just leaped inside of me. And this particular friend of mine's church was out at this apartment complex, and she said, just go. And when I went, I began to see what it was, and ultimately the woman who was running the ministry was saying, this is not a part of the vision of the church, this is not what I'm supposed to do. I need to be all in the church, and I need to turn this over to someone. So she turned it over to Powerhouse of Faith Ministry, and we ministered to the single families there, the single moms and their children. We ultimately did what we call life studies, which was like a Bible study, but it was more helping you to understand how to go beyond the sermon, how to apply the word to your life.
Wow, that's
And
great.
then we also did started mentorship programs for the single moms. One was called BU 365, where we actually help with self-identity and self-worth and self-love.
Good.
Yeah.
Really
And
good.
we talked about self-discipline and self-productivity
Yeah.
in that program. It was a 5-week program, and those were our topics.
Wow.
And then we also started LEAP, which is a leadership and effective communication program for the youth and
Okay.
teens.
Okay.
And we walked them through a process of being the CEO of You, which is the Chief Empowering Officer of You.
Okay,
And so
yes.
we helped them to understand about their interpersonal skills. We deal with problem solving, critical thinking. We also deal with them with their attitude management
Yeah.
and how to effectively communicate. You know, the things that I ultimately did not do
Right.
well as a child, as a teenager, because I didn't know how to express myself. I'm able to show them in a more positive way on how to express themselves.
Wow. So there definitely was an innate passion for the single mother because you went through that.
Yes.
Now, you're not single anymore.
No, not
So
happily married.
tell me about the other powerhouse person in your life.
With my husband Toriano, actually, that's truly a God-given relationship. We, ultimately knew each other for 3 months before we were married.
Okay.
Everything happened in threes for us. We
Okay.
knew each other for 3 months. We planned our wedding in 3 days. 3 months later, we had a reception. And here we are, 17 years later,
Yes.
still together, running a business together, running a ministry together, and home educating our children.
And how many children do you have now?
We have 3.
Three, right. And I know you have 2 boys.
We have 3.
Now it's 3 because I didn't know which one was the first one. Okay, so you have 3. I've met them, very nice gentlemen, love them. Now, how do you balance, you've got 4 other people that you got to worry about and being a mom. How do you balance that and ministry?
Well, like I tell people, I'm a wife and a mother first.
Okay.
And being a wife, that marriage is my first ministry.
Okay.
And I have what I consider my non-negotiables. If it's going to interfere with things with my marriage and, my children and my ministry, then there's certain things I'm not able to do. But I
Yes.
ultimately learned how to prioritize things because not only am I a wife, am I a mother, but I'm also a home-educated mom, an entrepreneur, and now an author, but I'm a speaker
Yes.
as well as a coach and mentor. And so I'm able to balance it all by prioritizing things and making sure that I'm doing things in the order it's supposed to be, and scheduling is so important.
Yes.
Putting things on the schedule and having set days for set things and sticking to it.
Yes. And how does the Powerhouse of Faith mix in with your book now? How's that mixing in? How does that work into it?
Well, because of the fact that this book is a book that talks about invisible scars and talks about ultimately the healing balm, which we know is Jesus Christ himself, and discovering the power to heal, we are creating a whole entire Right for Your Breakthrough clinic that we will take you through a 8-week clinic, or it can be done as a workshop or a master class to help you to be able to uncover what's going on with you and to really walk you through the process of healing, the process of being able to be free and to be unapologetically, authentically you,
Yes.
and because we already had the coach and mentorship programs in place, we're able now to expand that and begin to do more to help people to break free and to, be healed and delivered.
Wow. And where are these locations set up at?
Well, right now we have apartment complex in Raleigh that we minister in. We also still have what we a ministry within Powerhouse called Cafe for Women, and it's our Christian Bible fellowship that's in my home. We meet on the last Tuesdays of each month, and that was established because we wanted to have there's a lady that was looking to have women's empowerment in our area, and at first I was within her church, and then we moved into the home so we can have more intimate conversations to help women to find their solutions in the Word. And that's what we do. We use Bible studies and book studies to be able to walk people through the choices and the challenges of life that we as women face.
Wow.
And did you have any mentors, even in your early adult years, to kind of take you on the path of where you kind of went to?
Well, actually, in my youth, I didn't exactly have mentors per se. I had my grandmother, my auntie,
Yes.
that you would come and, always wanted to talk with me and my sister and sit us down and give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of certain things and making sure we was walking the right path. But after becoming an adult and even becoming being pregnant as a single mom, there was a lady in the church that kind of just came alongside of me and began to speak into my life. And then since then, I have coaches and mentors and spiritual advisors that is walking with me to help me to continue to push for my breakthrough, so that I continue to birth the vision that's in my heart, and I can help other people do the same.
Absolutely, and I think it's really good and real responsible, and you have accountability when you have somebody that's, I don't want to say the word covering, but certainly above you that you can look to, and because I think even as leaders, we need people that we can really share what's going on and be truthful with. Now, for a single mom, and it happens, what is the first thing they can do? You know, you get in these situations, and it's almost like, even with the family, there's so much guilt and shame that goes with it. What is the first thing that they can do, and especially if they're a believer, because it happens to believers as well, obviously.
Right.
So, what is the first thing that they can kind of grip themselves up with?
Well, actually, for myself, I was in the church when I became pregnant. You know, I had backslidden, you know, of course, but I was still going to church. I was still there, and so one of the things that I did do was I did repent first, you know, of my sin, and wanted to begin to change in my heart. But you have to make the choice that you want to make a change.
Yes.
But also, you need to find someone that can walk alongside of you. And for me, like I said, it was a lady in the church that was also a single mom that walked alongside of me and understood what was happening and what people were saying, even behind my back. But she began to speak wisdom. So I feel like you need to have an accountability partner, or someone that you can walk with, a mentor, a coach, a spiritual advisor that you can walk along with. You know, if it's not a family member, then find someone that's going to be there that can be a support, because you have to begin as a single mom to build your support system. And for me, because I had a boy, and now, granted, I have 2 more boys, I'm the only female in the house. You know, so, you know, so I had to find those male role models to make sure that my son was able to understand how to be a man. I can't teach you how to be a man.
Right.
You know, so for 5 years, I was a single mom, so I had to put him purposely around other positive role models so that he would understand, you know, how he was to be as well. And so you have to begin to create that support system and know who has your best interest at heart.
Right. And do you feel that because you kind of have this sort of inside lane knowledge that all your boys have sort of a empowering thing of how to look at women, respect women, so they possibly won't get into the same situation that you did? How does that work for you?
Well, because we are a home educating family, we instill the word of God in our children. We believe in training them up in the way they should go. And our motto in our house, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. So we actually instill them in the right way to be. And I'm very transparent with my children. I know a lot of parents may not be, but I'm very transparent. I'll tell them that mommy might have done this, but mama was wrong in what she did. And I explain different things, and I explain, you know, because she did this, this is what ultimately happened, and you don't really want to put someone else in that position, that situation. And because we are instilling in them the word, and they've had the word in them since birth, and even in the womb, you know, so I just believe that because of the way we are raising them, that they will continue to go in that way. And if they begin to stray, that we can kind of regroup them and bring them back in by just continuously, you know, like I tell them, I'm your mom, I'm your teacher, but then I can become your coach and your mentor. Right. You know, and walk you through some things. And because we believe in openness, we allow our children to express what's going on with them. Wow. You know, a lot of times parents, you know, look at me and say, well, you let them say that? Yes, I let them say it because it's what's in their heart. I got to know what's in their heart. Yes. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so at the end of the day, if I'm not allowing them to speak, I can't train them and teach them that this is wrong if they're only going to say it behind my back. Right,
right. And what made you decide to do homeschooling?
Actually, my husband and I thought we were going to be leaving Wake County. Okay. And I began to pray, and God had me research homeschooling. A neighbor of mine was homeschooling, and I just began to research it because I thought we were going into a different area, and I knew the things that we experienced in the public school system, and my son was in private school, and the private school was closing, so we were still looking at the homeschool way, but then we kept praying about it, but we ended up moving about 5 to 7 miles from where we were living, and we put him back in public school. And because of what I was seeing as I visited the school, my husband and I prayed, and we just, you know, heard the Lord say to homeschool, and so we started homeschooling him in his 5th grade year. It was the second semester of his 5th grade year, and we've been homeschooling ever since.
Wow.
And actually love it because it gives you the freedom, since we also have a trucking company, you know, so my kids was able to travel and learn things on the road as well.
Yes.
And so it just gives them a better way of doing things beyond the book.
Yes, and that's real powerful what you just said. They had a
Yes,
chance
it
to
is.
go out and experience what the world is, because whether it be books or on video games,
Yes.
a lot of times that's where the kids now are stuck in. But when you get them out on that open road and you get to see Mount Rushmore, you get to see everything like that, that's so invaluable.
Wow. And where do you see Powerhouse Ministries in about 3 to 5 years from now?
Well, I would love to see us more expanded, even being able to go into more places, even partner with organizations that we can be able to get this message out of, being able to break free and be able to forgive, forget forward, and having that message of faith and hope and forgiveness, so that, you know, other people can ultimately be able to take this message and spread it out. We really want this to be a almost like a movement, if you will, of being able to have that healing and forgiveness message going forth. And so we do want to see even our small groups expanding and having more small groups, because we believe that having those intimate sessions is so good, because you can be in a big church with all the people, but when you come in a small group, it's difficult to hide.
Yes.
And so we want to be able to have these intimate sessions where we can be candid and we can be open and we can help people to go beyond the sermon and be able to express how to take the word and make it applicable to your life. And even our mentorship programs, being able to let those help more than just single moms, but even those who are going through hurt, you know, hurting people, because I know that's what the Lord told me. I called you to hurting people to help them be able to get healed and delivered so that they can live their best life now.
Well, that's what's such an inspiration, Angela, that there is empowerment, that just because, you know, again, and the words you used was real powerful, and it has such a dirty connotation. We've made such a thing, repent, but just coming into it and realizing, okay, I made a mistake, let's move forward. And I know we're both admirers of you for doing that. So thank you. We want to thank Angela for being here, and we'll see you next time on Public Report.
This has been Public Report. Public Report discusses the issues of interest and importance to our viewing area. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of TCT or the station.
The Bible talks about seeking the kingdom first and all its righteousness, and all these other things that we seek will be added unto us. This is a great time to invest, amen, in the kingdom of God. God is asking you now to send your donations, send your charitable deeds, send your love offerings, so we can continue to keep doing the work of the Lord. This is the kingdom of God. Seek it first, and all those other things will be added unto you.